Oh, hi there. My name is Joaquin. I am a student from Lord Byron School, and I am going to tell you a little story of how my life suddenly changed. I was very excited for the starting of a new year at school. Hung out with my friends, learn new things. However, one day, my teacher told us something that took us by surprise. Classes were get suspended because of the new disease just arrived to our country, COVID-19. But what is this?
Well, according to the World Health Organization, coronavirus disease or COVID-19 is an infection disease caused by a newly discovered coronavirus. The strain of the virus that causes this disease is the severe acute respiratory syndrome coronavirus 2, SARS-CoV-2. This disease was first reported as a cluster of pneumonia in Wuhan, China in December 2019. But the spread of this virus has been quite fast worldwide, being classified as a pandemic in March 2020.
Most people infected with this virus will experience mild to moderate respiratory illness, similar to a common cold, but the recovery depends on how healthy you are. These are the most common symptoms: fever, cough, shortness of breath, sore throat, and headache. Many doctors state that previous health conditions such as diabetes, cardiovascular, or other respiratory diseases can affect the recovery process. Moreover, in elderly people, the race for a vaccine has already started, giving us hope for defeating this virus.
This pandemic has definitely had negative impact in everyone's life. But what about environment? Quarantine, isolation, lockdown, but above all social distance have been the most improbable safety measurement around the world to stop the spread of the virus. This leads to a disease for emotion, for pollutants, being nitrogen dioxide one of the most important. Now we are going to see the air pollution in most of the countries that are affected with the virus.
Let's start talking about the country where all this started. China, the most populous country in the world. Several sources pointed to the Wuhan local market as the epicenter of this pandemic, due to the sale of exotic animals for human consumption. On January 23rd, the central government of China imposed a lockdown in Wuhan and other cities in Hubei, in an effort to stop the spread of the virus. This action reduced transport activities, which resulted in less energy consumption and lower oil demand. NASA and the European Space Agency released fresh evidence which suggests that environmental quality improved and emissions of NO2 were reduced up to 30%. This is a satellite picture of the city of Wuhan. The darker spots, the more emissions of NO2 gases are. As we can see, the contamination has been greatly reduced in two periods, February 2019 and 2020, due to the COVID-19 lockdown in this city. Contamination occurs in the whole city of China. We can see a huge difference in the NO2 emissions between the months of January and February of 2020. Big factories, even in important cities like Beijing and Shanghai, were closed during the quarantine as well as transportation.
India is the second most populous country on the world and has very significant population issues compared to other countries. Its economy depends on the oil it lands produce, being consumed by cars, trucks, and other means of transport, which is one of the main sources of nitrogen dioxide emission. Due to COVID-19, it implemented the lockdown in March 25, 2020, and this measure had greatly influenced the environmental equality. NASA and the European Space Agency published satellite images of India to indicate environmental equality before and after COVID-19 lockdown. Here we can see four pictures comparing nitrogen dioxide emission in India between 2019 and 2020. In 2019, we can see that the city of Kolkata, Varanasi, had more pollution than Delhi, Kiev, and Nagpur. However, in 2020, many of these cities are not highlighted with the same intensity, which represent an important decrease in air pollution. These graphics show the daily mean of nitrogen dioxide emission in Delhi, the capital of India, which represent the pre-lockdown and during the lockdown period. The finding revealed that before the lockdown, the level of nitrogen dioxide emission in Delhi remains between 30 and 65 micrograms per cubic meter. However, as the lockdown announced in India, the level of nitrogen dioxide emission showed a dramatic decline. In Delhi, the average of nitrogen dioxide emission during the lockdown period remains between 12 and 25 micrograms per cubic meter. Without a doubt, this pandemic has made many positive changes in air quality of India.
Did you know that noise is also considered a way of pollution? According to the environmental pollution centers, Noise pollution is generally defined as regular exposure to elevated sound levels that may lead to adverse effects in humans or other living organisms. We can see in this graphic that noise pollution is generally occasioned by cars, especially during traffic congestion. It is followed by sirens and loud television. Noise levels are measured in decibels, and according to the World Health Organization, 55 decibels is the amount of noise that a human ear can tolerate without altering its health. India has two of the noisiest cities in the world, Mumbai and Delhi, where noise levels reaches 85 decibels continuously and 93 decibels in some industrial areas. The quarantine measures by governments has led to a reduction of private and public transportation. Commercial and industrial activities got interrupted as well, dropping down noise levels considerably. In this infographic from Times of India, we can see a decrease of 50% on the noise levels measured in Govindpuri metro station. This situation was registered in other parts of the city as well. So in India, not only air quality improved, but also we got a reduction in noise pollution.
Now we are going to make a comparison of air quality between two countries that have the high concentrations of rates of COVID-19, Italy and USA. Safety measures in late February, the government of Italy decreed lockdown in certain northern provinces due to the increasing number of COVID-19 cases. Then, on March 9, the Italy Prime Minister Giuseppe Conte imposed a national quarantine that ended on May 18. Due to the USA federal system, each state has its own lockdown rules based on President Trump. Overall advice, stay at home and not to raise 50 or more people. In early March, by the end of that month, 32 out of 50 had lockdown, being New York, California, Washington State, the most affected areas in the country. Air pollution is a huge problem in Italy. Reports from the local indicate that northern cities like Milan, Turin, Brescia, and Venezia have the worst pollution in all Europe. In USA, the situation is similar. Data from Washington Post show that the air of pollution worsened in country 2017 and 2018. Cities like New York, Los Angeles, Houston, Atlanta are the most polluted. During the lockdown in northern Italy, air pollution dropped down. After the government introduced the non-way lockdown, satellite images of Italy provided by the European Space Agency show that concentrations of NO2 emissions in Italy during March 2018 and 2020, indicating that during the quarantine, the NO2 emissions were reduced from 30%. In a northern state of the USA, concentrations of NO2 emissions also dropped down. After the safety measures imposed, satellite images of USA provided by NASA show that concentrations of NO2 emissions in northern USA during March 2015 to 2018 and March 2020, indicating that during the quarantine, the NO2 emissions were reduced from 25%.
As we have seen, the decrease in air pollution has been benefited in many countries around the world. We have 4 pictures that show the change in air pollution in cities like New Delhi, India, Hong Kong, China, Paris, France, and New York, USA. These cities are the most important in each country, either because of the large number of people who live there, or due to the high commercial and economical flow in these cities. Now, let's take a look at what happened in Latin America. These pictures supplied by NASA show us that in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, there has been a reduction of approximately 36% in NO2 levels compared to previous years. Other cities show a similar decrease in NO2 emissions. 36% in Santiago, Chile, 35% in Sao Paulo, Brazil, and 40% in Buenos Aires, Argentina. But a remarkable example is Lima, Peru, which shows us a decrease of 69%. Part of this large decrease may be associated with natural climatic variations that can be disperse air pollution more quickly, and of course the early implementation of the quarantine and the duration of it. There was also a significant increase in NO2 concentrations in Colombia and Venezuela, which is probably associated with an increase in agricultural burns in 2020 compared to previous years. In general aspects, most countries reduce NO2 emissions during quarantine, but I would like to know a little more about the situation in our city.
Oh, I can help you with that. Lima, the capital of Peru, and our city also presented some changes during the quarantine that started on March 16, with strict measures that include curfew from 8 p.m. to 5 a.m. and the closing of borders. Until August 31, some cities maintained a targeted quarantine. This picture, captured by the European Space Agency and analyzed by researchers from the Faculty of Science of the Universidad Nacional de La Molina, shows an improvement in air quality in Lima and Callao the week after the quarantine started. In this, it is observed how the concentration of NO2 decreased due to the lack of traffic flow. In this graphic, taken from the Municipality of Lima data, we can see the average weekly variation of NO2 emissions per day before and during the period of quarantine. NO2 levels were reduced by at least 70% of the usual values. In addition, according to records from the Ministry of Environment, during compulsory social isolation, unlike in other years, this March was recorded in Lima no more than 20 micrograms per cubic meter of particulate material size of 2.5 microns. These particles come largely from the emission of diesel vehicles that travel through the city and have an impact on our health, because due to their small size, they easily enter the respiratory tract. In this picture, we can observe the big weekly average of PM2.5 before and during this stage of quarantine between March and April. Before the lockdown, Caraballo and Villa Maria del Triunfo were the areas with more concentration of PM2.5. But during the first week of quarantine, Caraballo had a great decrease, as well as the other stations. To sum up, our capitals show an improvement on air quality during the quarantine because of the decrease of NO2 emissions and PM2.5.
Another positive impact on the environment took place on the beaches. Here, pollution also decreased noticeably. According to WWF, 80% of the plastic in our oceans is from land sources and comes from littering, products that go down the drain, and throwing plastic in the bin when it could be recycled. Before the pandemic, many people went to the beaches, especially on holidays and weekends. Some people threw garbage on the sand after having their snacks, and due to the agglomeration of people in there were many animals around or even near. As an example, we have Costa Verde beaches. You can see the sea cleaner and the sand without trash. This happened as a consequence of the absence of tourists. Did you hear more birds during the quarantine period? Well, this is also related to the noise pollution that I mentioned a while ago. We can see in this chart the different auditory sensitivity of some animals. Most of the animals can hear 3 times as much as humans. With quarantine and everyone at home, animals like birds didn't hear any loud sounds, and that's why they were heard so close.
So far, we have seen the positive effect of COVID-19 in the environment during the period of quarantine, especially in a decrease of NO2 and important air pollution. But what happened with the waste management?
Due to the pandemic, medical attentions and precautions taken by people has increased. Therefore, medical waste has grown and affect many countries and cities since people are scared to protect themselves using personal protection like masks or gloves. As a result, they have generated tons of medical waste. For this reason, COVID-19 creates extra challenge for waste management and economic progress for countries. Medical waste has increased in many countries and big cities around the world and developing countries. According to a review, hospitals in Wuhan, China generate 6 times as much medical waste in a peak to the outbreak as they did before the crisis began. Buildings that would normally generate large amounts of recyclable have limited options because of the fear of the people. In this picture you can see a man in Hong Kong beach showing us the scared masks that are contaminated, generating a lot of land pollution near the ocean, which is very dangerous for the ocean and for the environment. In this second image, you can see people who work in waste management using protection suits to avoid the risk of contagion. For this reason, waste is increasing and recycling is decreasing since there are a lot of probability of you getting infected doing that work. With this, you can see the negative impact that the pandemic has.
Now let's talk about the ozone layer. The ozone layer is a natural sunscreen and plays a very important function by absorbing the harmful UV rays from the sun. Ozone depleting substances, ODC, are gases such as chlorines and or bromines, which breaks the ozone layer in the stratosphere, causing the ozone holes that are the depletion of the protective ozone layer in the upper atmosphere, the stratosphere over Earth's polar regions. In this picture, ozone concentrations in the Arctic pole increased in March 2020 and in April 2020. The ozone hole was gone, but is this related to COVID-19's lockdown? The severe depletion of the ozone layer reported above Arctic was caused one of the nature's other villains, the polar vortex, which is a large area of low pressure and cold air soaring the Earth's north and south poles. According to the Copernicus Atmosphere Monitoring Service, the polar vortex finally broke up early April 2020, allowing ozone-rich air to return to the Arctic atmosphere. Also, lockdown due to COVID-19 is surely showing the prominent sign of nature balance restoration of the ozone layer that is not related to COVID-19. Actually, thanks to the Montreal Protocol established in 1987, the UN member countries agreed to abandon the use of chemicals that damage the ozone layer. It is expected that the ozone layer recovers in the middle of the 21st century due to the success of the protocol.
We have learned about the consequences of the pandemic on the environment. We have negative ones, like the increase of waste generated by using personal protective equipment, such as masks that came from the hospitals. Therefore, changes in NO2 can be used as an indicator of changes in human activity, provided that this data is properly processed and interpreted.
While the population confines itself to their homes with the aim of covering the spread of coronavirus and saving lives, the planet is experiencing the positive collateral effects of this pandemic. But will this change in the environment last over time? It depends on us. This positive impact on the environment may be temporary, but governments and individuals should learn from this lockdown. We are agents of change, and it is our hands to act and make a difference.
Wash your hands regularly.
Use a mask while you are out of home or if you feel sick.
Avoid touching your face. Cover your mouth and nose when coughing or sneezing.
Avoid unnecessary travel and staying away from large group of people.
Take at least 2 meters distance between you and other people.
Eat healthy and exercise regularly.
And stay home as much as you can.